Hi, it's Shelley from FaithX, helping you connect your faith and your business with confidence. Today I'm sharing some from Ezekiel chapter 2, and I want to talk about some things that I read in the Nyjah Henry commentary about the same passage, really around this idea of an attitude of readiness when you're being approached by God and His calling, and how to apply that in our business. And then what to do if we're not really having that attitude. So Ezekiel 2, chapter 2, verse 1 and 2 says, He said to me, that's Ezekiel writing, so God said to Ezekiel, Son of man, stand up on your feet and I will speak to you. As he spoke, the Spirit came into me and raised me to my feet, and I heard him speaking to me. So when I was reflecting on this passage, I noticed that it said, stand up on your feet and I will speak to you. And I thought that was really weird. So I looked it up in the Nyjah Henry commentary, and it says that that is a very significant phrase. So reading from that, he says, Ezekiel is here set up and made to stand so he could receive his commission. He is set up by a divine command and by divine power going along with that command. So previously to this, Ezekiel was not standing up, right? Because if God had to tell him to stand up, he wasn't standing up. So Nyjah Henry says that his lying prostrate, face down, was a posture of greater reverence, but his standing up would be a posture of greater readiness. And he says our adoration of God must not hinder, but rather quicken and excite our acting for God. We might expect that God will speak to us when we stand ready to do what he commands. And I love that because I think it's so true. Like sometimes I feel like, okay, God, I'm praying and I'm praying and I'm praying, and I'm not really ready to take action on any of the things that I'm praying about. So if any of that was to be granted, like if my request were to be granted by God, I wouldn't be ready for that anyway. So it would be kind of a waste. Like, and part of that is I'm not using the opportunities I have, the blessings that I have, and the things that he's already given me in the way that I should to be ready for what is coming. So it kind of that idea of faithful in the small things, but also to really feel like, okay, if you're standing up in readiness of action, that means there's some hope and expectation that God is actually going to be calling you to something specific, right? Like that you will have to get going on. And I don't think I always pray with that expectation that God is going to do something. It might not be the something that I am waiting for, right? In this case, Ezekiel didn't necessarily expect that God was going to approach him, right? But when he did, then the command was stand up, be ready for what I'm about to tell you. And I think when we are experiencing that edge of like, oh, I feel like something's coming, it can be kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, I know it's coming, so I'm just going to try to rush through it. I'm really impatient. Or it can be one of those things where like, I know it's coming, but I don't know what's coming yet. So I'm just going to sit back and let's see. And it's too much of the sitting back, right? There has to be a balance somewhere in between that is, I'm ready for whatever comes next, but I'm not trying to make it happen on my own. In the commentary, continuing on in the commentary, it says that God asked him to stand up, but because he had no strength of his own to recover his feet or courage to face this vision, the Spirit entered him and set him on his feet. God is graciously pleased to work that in us, which he requires of us, and raises up those he says to rise. We must stir up ourselves, and then God will put strength in us. So the Spirit set him on his feet, made him more willing and forward to do as he was asked, and then heard God speak to him. And it says he heard the voice before, but now he hears it much more clearly and submitted to it. So the Spirit sets us on our feet by inclining our will to our duty or our calling. And then I'm paraphrasing because Nyjah Henry is, this commentary is like super old. So then the next thing is that the Spirit also gives us the understanding to receive the knowledge of it. So it's really cool to me, given all of that information and the background and his interpretation of this, it's really cool to me to see how it goes from God calls you, he says, stand up, be ready for what I'm about to say. And in that action of standing up, like even if we can't do it, even if we feel afraid to face what he's calling, or unwilling to take action, or we're uncertain of how to find that balance between waiting on God completely, not doing anything, waiting on God, or doing too much while we're trying to have this thing happen and trying to do it on our own, and having the Spirit, which in us is already in us as believers, right? Since we are after Pentecost, where the Spirit came on believers, and Jesus says we have the Spirit of us. God in Ezekiel's time hadn't given that gift yet, so the Spirit had to come to him. But for us, the Spirit is already in us. He's already there, and he's ready to help us stand up, be ready for what God is calling us to do, and to hear clearly the direction that he's giving us. So I think that my next action for this week will be to pray around having more willingness to ask, to expect, number one, that God is doing something, and to ask that I will be able and willing to stand up and be ready for what God is telling me. And then to ask for discernment about how is God showing up in my life? Where do I need to be ready? And what is he trying to say? What is my next step? And then that comes from the Spirit, right? The Spirit guiding you and strengthening you in that. So if you are willing to join me in this, let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for more videos for Christian entrepreneurs. And again, look forward to the Sword and Savvy interview series in the summer. I'm really excited about it, and I think that there are great value. I just did another interview with somebody, so I know that this is going to be a super valuable series for you. So thank you very much for listening and watching, and I appreciate all that you are doing for people in your business and with your expertise, the gifts that God has given you. I know that this is one way that we can serve other people, and I hope that you are strengthened in what you're doing and encouraged, and have a great day.